And it's going to be a very interesting one because this will tell you how to automate your network using Infrahub and Terraform. And yeah, why is that interesting? Well, because if you automate it, you don't have to do it yourself anymore. It's very simple. Here to tell us all about it is Marco Martinez.
Yeah, thank you. So I guess everybody looks hungry, so I'll try to hurry up a little bit. I might ruin some weekends here because people want to automate their stuff at home. Well, I'm sorry. So first about me. My name is Marco Martinez. I work at Swisscom. I'm an infrastructure automation architect. And if you want to connect or have some questions about my work, feel free to contact me. So what are the challenges in network automation? We have the big challenge that our configurations are sometimes stored in Gits, sometimes stored in other files. Maybe sometimes they're not stored anywhere. Any hands? Very good. I didn't see any hands for the record. Then we also have the problem that our information is split into different domains. The network engineer wants to get it working. The security guy wants to have it secure. Somebody maybe just has some other organizational requirements. And we need to get this into one domain where we can make it work and we can make it sustainable. Sometimes we have a lot of steps that we need to do to apply a config. We have different reviews, we have different CLIs we need to open, we sometimes have to go on each device. So we try to do it the most efficient way we can. Then a big problem for all of us is the drift. So we have out of sync. When we have an issue, sometimes we don't adjust the desired state, we just go onto the device, we fix it, and we go in our weekend, but do we really want that? On Monday, if somebody does a rollback of the configuration, will it still work? Probably not. So the common challenges I identified is the delay that we have, getting it from our heads into the devices. We have the config drifts. Sometimes humans make errors, and also the visibility sometimes is not great, since we just go onto the devices and fix everything. So I think everybody's a little fed up with the concept of source of truth. That's why I added another word. I call it the living source of truth, because the idea is here, our source of truth is actually the truth, and it's something that evolves over time. So we don't do it once, we do it multiple times. And if we want to adjust something, we adjust our source of truth, and that should adjust our infrastructure. So the management can be over UI, it can be over code, or it can be anyhow we can imagine it. We want immediate consistency, so if we change something, the source of truth, it should automatically change on the devices themselves. Or if we adjust it on the devices, we can also sync it back to the source of truth. That's also an approach I would say is okay for me, but I like the prior one where we do it on the source of truth and then we immediately sync it back to our devices. Then we want faster feedback loops. So if we want to adjust something, maybe you have filters in our source of truth. You cannot set this IP, that doesn't belong to us. This filter list needs to be applied. So we can also do that in the data model, and we don't need to do that on the device. Yeah, I, in general, don't like manual steps. That's why I do automation, and that's what I also want to see less of. Then, in general, we want transparency. So let's start our journey. First of all, our goal is to manage our infrastructure reliable, and we do it in a stable way. So infrastructure as code might seem like a good fit. It has a lot of good things in it. It is the logical thing we think about if we want it reliable, we want it reproducible and stable. But sometimes it also has a continuity problem where we just do fire and forget. We do this Terraform command and it's gone. Maybe we lose the state file and then we don't really have an idea. Or even worse, we use like 10 tools and we don't really know which tool belongs to which domain, and it just is a huge mess. Also, the problem of using many different tools is that we have a problem of complexity. Our environment is very complex. Somebody asks me, oh, how do I adjust this router? And I'm like, go see in the Git. That's an approach, but if I use different automation tools for everything, I'd rather not have it in the Git. I'd rather have it somewhere where I can do it tool agnostic, and then the tool does the job for me. Yes. So, but at the same time, we all know money is a precious resource, time, the same thing. So we have to do it in an agnostic way where we bundle the complexity in one place, and then every tool does what it does best. So in this case, I don't try to automate a firewall using PowerShell. Maybe sometimes I do, but usually I don't. So I try to define a desired state, then I aggregate these desired states in my data source, called the living source of truth, and then I create my infrastructure with the tool that is the best fit for this task. So this is a little way how you could do it. So on the left-hand side, you can see you have your infrastructure as code tools. And those are not modifying our infrastructure in the first step. They're just modifying our source of truth. So I can go onto the source of truth. Here it's an Infrahub, where I can either go onto the web UI, I can do some modifications, or I just use Terraform and I'm like, I want to have 20 new routers. So I just spin up 20 new routers, put it in my source of truth, and then the source of truth has hooks that then does it on the actual infrastructure. So here, I don't need to use Terraform, I can use Ansible, and for the source of truth, I could also use Netbox. It's just a way of stitching the thing together. Then on the right-hand side, I see here I have my tools that fit best my environment, what I want to do. So here I can see I have SDCIO, that's schema-driven configuration. Here, this tool does all the work for me. I have the schema ready in my data source, and then I push it to the SDC, and this one does all the magic for me. It does all the configuration, and I don't need to ask about what is done. So what I see in the source of truth is the actual reality. Now I prepared a little deep dive on how we can do a setup like this, and I would like to take you on the journey with me. So first of all, we have this version-controlled system that is Infrahub, where we can have governance on it. We have different branches. We have this model where we can use exactly what we want. We're not cornered into using something that is suboptimal. We just adjust it. So on the left-hand side, you see my Terraform code. I have a new spine leaf architecture that I want to build. This is a small snippet of it. I just create a few spines, a few leaves, and then push it into Infrahub. So on my next step, I can see the main branch, and I'll comment the video as it runs. Let's see. Yeah, I go ahead. I create a branch that is brand new. Let's call it LAN refresh because I'm doing some new stuff. Of course, this branch is empty now. It's the same state as my main file. I scroll through the Terraform. This is all I want to do. These are all my new switches. I have some management IPs, some interface statuses. I apply this, and what this does, it hooks into Infrahub, and it creates all my devices. So now on the LAN refresh branch, I have all my devices I want. Now I can do the 4 eyes principle, and I can tell a colleague, can you check, are these devices the way we want them to be? Do we need to adjust something, or what do we do? If my colleague says, oh, maybe that is supposed to be different, then we change it, right? We do it before we're changing stuff in production. We change it before that. We can have automatic testing as well. We can have the security guy doing his eyes. And we can do all of it. So here we can also see the diff about it, and we can merge it. So now that we're going on the journey with us, I also have this nice dashboard. It has live metrics on it, and also the green slots you can see, those are the connections, and once I put them down, they're going into red. So that we'll see in a later stuff. As a disclaimer, this is not a real network, it's just a container lab, but it should simulate a real network. Nice. So what we have right now, we have our data in the source of truth in Infrahub, and what we built now is the right-hand side, which is running on a Kubernetes cluster. And that one, there's an operator that pulls our artifacts from Infrahub, and then the artifacts actually configure SDC. SDC is Kubernetes native, and the custom resources define what SDC is doing, and then it defines the network itself. So what we do, this is my config artifact. It is just a Jinja template, and it's the Jinja template that I built beforehand. This is for all my devices. I can do this differently for every device I want. And then it automatically generates this for every single device I put in this group. So here I have my Nokia devices, and it will put, based on the information I have in my source of truth, it will generate these custom resources. Yeah. What this Vidra does is it takes those artifacts, it downloads them, and it applies them to Kubernetes automatically. So if I change something in Kubernetes, it will directly apply them. No, if I change something in my source of truth, it will automatically override it and apply it to Kubernetes. So this is how I can ensure my desired state is always the state that is on Kubernetes and the state on my network. Good. So let's go through that. On the right-hand side, we can see the thing. Everything is up. We do a new branch. I decide I want to change something in my network. I want to disable some. I want to do some maintenance. So I call the branch maintenance. What I do next is I go into my source of truth, or no, actually I go into my Terraform code. I adjust the branch I want to work on, and I say, oh, maintenance, I'm going to take down some interfaces of my spines. So what I do there is I go into the interface. I do this, the enabled value is false now. And next thing I do is I push it onto Infrahub, or I do a Terraform apply. So what this does is it changes it in the data, in the data source in my Infrahub. I can go onto the branch now and check if there were any things made, if there are any changes on there. So in the maintenance branch, I can do the governance step now. The security guy can do his eyes. Everybody can look at the changes if they're fine, and then we can merge them. Now we go check the diff on the branch and see what was changed. So right now is maybe a little small. Maybe the people need to take out the reading glasses, but you can see that all the interfaces changed their status from enabled to enabled false, which is disabled. Yes. So the cool thing what Infrahub does is now that I merge it into my main branch, it also regenerates the artifacts. Now on the side, we can see very small that the status from enabled changed to disabled. And once I merge it into main, my Vidra operator will take it, put it onto the Kubernetes cluster, apply it, and SDC will push it to my devices. So right now it's merging. This is all in real time, by the way. This is not sped up or anything. So I can go here, check my main branch, go back into my Kubernetes cluster. I just open the thing I showed before. Now we can still see it's still enabled, which it usually takes a couple of seconds. Once I run the command again, it will be on the status disabled, just we have in the source of truth. And then SDC will take it immediately and apply the config diff to the device, and will take down the interfaces. So now we can see all my spine interfaces, or the ones I configured, the first 3, are already down, and that's how it is in my source of truth. Some people might ask me, what do I do if somebody calls me at night? Yeah, my boss tells me, fix it. Well, the problem is, if I do the old school approach and just go onto the device, it will work for a few minutes. Will it work after that? We see. So here, my boss calls me at night. I don't like it at all. I'm too lazy. I'm like, this source of truth, that doesn't do anything. Let me go on my spine. So I go onto the interface. I see, ooh, yeah, it's disabled. Obviously, it can't work like this. So my first intuition is, I go into the config, I'll change it real quick, and I go back to sleep. Well, if you have the dashboard, the good thing is you can see your changes do something. So right now I apply the changes, and my dashboard goes green in a few seconds, I would assume. Yeah. But that's obviously not the approach how we want to work, because now we have identified a config drift. So we saw they turn green right now. I put the interface on the first switch I enabled, and it works. Now I can see on the SDC, I go back into the config artifact. It hasn't changed. So we're still in the disabled mode. But that's not good. Now we have the config drift, and now we can see SDC is the bad guy, and it just overrides it, what I did. So all my work is gone, and my boss will call in 5 minutes again. So what you should do now is, maybe you're tired at night, you don't want to do this Terraform stuff, you don't want to figure out where it is in the code. So a good thing would be, yeah, just do it in the UI. Sometimes we're tired, sometimes we don't want to figure out code. We go into the UI, we put the tick in enabled, we push it to the main branch. Maybe somebody watches. Where's the security guy? So we can see the artifact was regenerated. Now it puts it onto enabled. Once I merge it, it will instantly take up the interface, and I hope the problem is solved by now. So that is the really easy approach on how to do it. It doesn't require big coding skills. It just does it automatically. It takes care of stuff. And the nice thing about this is you don't need to see your network. You can have your observability still. But you still have the source of truth where you see the desired state, and hopefully those two things match. Right. We can see here, it already applied it, and now it should also go red in a couple of seconds. Let's hope it works. Well, oh, no, I enabled it using the config, so it will not go red. Thank you for paying attention. Well, so that is the whole model of it doing. Somebody might ask, but what if I do other things than network? Good question. What if I have other tools? Where's my observability? Where's all my other stuff? So the living source of truth is not just I configure my network, is I configure everything. Could you imagine having all your data source of your network in your source of truth? You could configure your monitoring tools. If you add a switch, you don't need to configure your monitoring tools. You just pull the data from your source of truth, and you know what to do. Maybe your Cisco switches always need to monitor your CPU load, maybe your interfaces, maybe something else. Also, you're not bound to this SDC tool. You can use your Python tool. You just pull the desired state, and you apply it. You can do pipelines. You can still use Ansible. You can do whatever you want. This also could apply to DNS. I have a talk in my pipeline that I do Power DNS, and I want to configure it using the source of truth. So if I change something in the source of truth, maybe it applies it onto the DNS. But that's a topic for another time. Good. Some might ask, well, I already have a network. I already have my automation tools. How do I get from point A to point B? Well, in my opinion, start small, have data sources, maybe try to centralize them as much as possible. If it's not possible to do it in one place, just sync them. And usually, I would fix the most time-consuming issues first. If I take 8 hours to deploy a new switch, maybe I should start there. Like, taking up an interface, taking it down is not that much of work. But yeah. Also, use the tools that fit your workflow best. So I would not use PowerShell to configure a Cisco device. But maybe I would use Ansible, or maybe even Terraform in the new world. Or maybe this SDC tool also comes in handy. Yeah. So obviously, everybody has their tools. Work to your advantages, and automate the things you can, and also accept if you cannot automate some things. Some things are just a requirement, and we have to live with it. Next up, my goal, how I view the world, is I want infrastructure that I can change however I want. I don't want the infrastructure that is on the device itself and the device is the source of truth. I want to be able to push my new config onto the device and just delete everything that was there before that. I want to have this central data source that does it all for me, and I don't need to check on the device and fear that somebody made a change yesterday at night. Also, what I think having a data source or multiple data sources that sync is it generates a lot of transparency. Maybe we have some less technical folks that also want to see where is that IP, what is the progress of our project. I saw a Grafana dashboard today, or somebody mentioned it. That is quite a nice way of doing that. So they don't have to ask an engineer. They can go onto the source of truth and just check. Also, a nice thing would be if we didn't, well, maybe some people will hate me after that, but it would be nice that we cannot log into our devices from a security point of view. If just Infrahub pushes our data to the tool that is needed, and the tool does the thing. So nobody can log into the device. Maybe we have a break glass user that we never use, but we don't need to log into our devices. I hope I can still walk after this, and nobody hates me. And also, I think it's nice having this single pane of glass where I can see what the actual status is and not have to fear that it's different every way. Everybody knows this guy that says something in the meeting, and somebody's like, actually, that's not true on this device. I don't want that. Yes. So the whole demo I have is on the GitHub, and I would like to open it for questions.
Thank you, Marco. Fortunately, there are questions. Again, I have a feeling that one will be about DNS. We will see.
I hope
Peter.
so.
It won't. So, hi, I'm Peter from PowerDNS. I'm the other Peter. Does Infrahub and Kubernetes run on infrastructure it manages? And if so, can you do a cold start?
On my proof of concept, it does.
I'm talking about your production environment.
Oh, my production environment? No, it doesn't. So we have our data source in one place, and we have the infrastructure it manages in another place. So we kind of don't have this chicken and egg situation. But it could definitely be an approach that you're going, but I don't see it as realistic right now. It would take a lot of engineering effort, and we only have so much time and budget to do it.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Joris Klaassen, Risk Networks. So very familiar problems that you're solving. Good to see this working. I was curious, when an operator fixes something at night using Infrahub, how does this thing sync back to your infrastructure as code within Terraform?
Well, in Terraform, it's just a vehicle to change what is in Infrahub.
Right.
So ideally, I wrote the Terraform provider, so it's not working yet, but there's a Terraform import that would import the data you have in Infrahub, and then you can change it there.
Exactly, yeah. This was the part that was missing. Thanks.
Bart Dorland, self-employed. Thank you, Joris, for taking my question. So I was indeed wondering how you would deal with, not everybody is as good with Git or with Terraform, right? So my question was around the state that Terraform keeps, right? And if you make changes in Infrahub, you might have challenges around that. But we'll save that. So then, for next year when you're coming back, right? Can you do a comparison of what you built and then put it against KubeNet?
You mean the custom resources?
No, the whole thing, just against KubeNet of what they are doing with Nokia, right? I'm sure.
Well, SDC is part of KubeNet, right?
Sure.
Yeah. I can do that, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll hook you up with that.
Yeah, sure, great. And else we'll just include Urs and we'll fix everything, right?
Yeah, sure. We'll also use some nuts.
For sure. Thank you.
Thank you very much again, Marco. And please wait. We have a present for you.